Okay, so how do you get business as a home inspector? Well, first of all, you got to come up with a name. In New York, we have DBA forms available at erie.gov, www.erie.gov, E-R-I-E.gov. And when you go there, it'll give you, there's a form if you go to the Erie County Clerk's office, you'll see that there's a form there where you can download the DBA form. DBA stands for doing business as. But before you can just fill out that form, you have to make sure that the name isn't used. So regardless of where you are in the country, if you ever move or we have people that are watching from another part of the country, you want to go to the county hall that you plan on operating in. Whatever county you live in is usually where you get a DBA filed, and check and see if the name is being used. Because if the name is being used, then you need a plan B and maybe a plan C. Also, you should Google the names that you want to use and make sure that it's not being used or it's not similar to someone else, because why help someone else get business or get yourself into a problem where they start suing you because your name is so similar or whatever. You know, I'm not a lawyer, but you know, just I like to avoid problems if I can in advance. Like, why get yourself into a situation if you can avoid it? And you know, when you talk about names, like I'll tell you, we had a past student who wanted, for some reason, he was real excited about using the name Achilles Home Inspection. Now, I don't know about you, but I can probably count on one hand the number of times I say Achilles or spell Achilles. Even spelling is even probably once every 15 years, maybe at the most. And when he suggested to me that that's a name he wanted, I expressed my same concerns to him that I'm not sure people are going to know how to spell it. And then if they're going to spell it, you know, then if you don't spell it right, then you might get other things that pop up. Like, you don't want a porn site showing up if you're typing out something like, you know, like it's like literally, you want to pick a name that's not long. You want to pick a name that's spellable, like Hooked on Phonics spellable. And then see if it's available, you know. Now, there's some really boring names that people use, like it's so blah, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's, you know. And you want to think big, you know, because who knows, like, depending what your master plan is for life, you might franchise your business at some point. You know, you might become really big, and who knows what's going to happen. So you have to like take all of that into consideration. So Google some names and see what's being used, or if it's being used, then you can go to the online records for our county, as I described. You go to erie.gov and click on online records, and you can type in the different names that you want to use. And if they don't show up, there's a pretty good chance that you're good to go with that name. If you're in a different county, I don't know what the rules are for other counties. I'm assuming they'll have some kind of online version of something. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it old school and go to the county hall of the county that you're living in or you'll be working in and file your paper, you know, do your research there. Or maybe they have it on their computer, you use their computer and find out what names are available. Like I said, have a couple ideas. Don't go there with just one, like, I need this name, I have to use this name. Don't do that, because when that happens, that name's not going to be available, okay? And you need a phone number. There's a lot of phone number options out there. You know, I recommend, if you're going to use a cell phone, like if you can pick a number, and it's hard to pick numbers, but sometimes some services are out there that allow you to pick numbers. You can maybe pick a number and have it forwarded to your cell phone, so you don't need to pay for a separate cell phone. Multiple digits that are like the same, you know, like having, you know, there's a lawyer in the Buffalo area, hurt in a car, call Matar, right? And he's got like, I don't know, he's got like a bunch of numbers, 444, I think, or is that Celino and Barnes? I forget who does what, but you know, like anything with lots of multiple digits, you know, if it's 845, 6676, you know, like repetitious numbers people remember easier, okay? It's not the end of the world if you can't do it. Spelling things out is not a big deal anymore. It used to be that the digits on your phone, if you spelled out a name, for some reason that just doesn't, the way technology is now, it's not a big deal anymore, especially because we don't use rotary phones, you know. So we talk about, so you want a phone number, and you want to be available to that phone number all waking hours, like from 7 a.m. until 11 p.m. at least. Because when you're not available, people usually, here's what realtors are taught and what the National Association of Realtors recommends. Give your clients 3 home inspectors that you feel comfortable with, that do the job that they promise they're going to do and are thorough. Don't ever recommend just 1. So when they give their client 3 and you're on that list, if you're number 1 on that list and they get your voicemail, they get a busy signal, they call number 2 and then they call number 3. And our goal is that you catch that call, because that's a big chunk of money that you're going to lose out on if you can't answer that call. So you want to be able to take those calls. You're going to need a website as well. And I'm talking about a website that you don't just set up and then never touch it again. Websites are relatively easy to set up. If you don't know how to do it, there's tons of places out there that'll do it for you. But you want to make sure you have a professional, functional website. The website should be reflective of your personality and the services that you're going to provide. And I would say GoDaddy, we use GoDaddy for one of our websites. They do a good job. There's Wix. If you heard of Wix, Wix does a good job. There's a bunch of them out there. Want to make sure that your website is secure. That's when you go to a web page and they have a little lock on the URL line, and you see like a little padlock. Then people feel secure that they're on a site that's not going to be hacked, okay? Especially if you're sending reports through your website, or you have a link on your website that people will click on. I can't get into all the minutia of everything because it goes way beyond what New York wants us to cover. But a website that, again, everything should match up. Whatever your name you're going to have, Jim's Home Inspection Service, then you're going to want to make sure everything matches. Your website should match. It shouldn't be JMS services, that's not connecting, because sometimes people will just Google, I think that home inspector is Jim's Home Inspection, and type that in, and you want Google to find you. Google won't know that JMS Inspections is you for a long time. Eventually, Google figures that out, but you're losing business when it can't, because there's no phone. People don't use phone books anymore. Everything's done online. So when people Google to search things, you want Google to find you. And believe me, Google AdWords, that will get expensive, but it's a necessity. I call Google the mafia it's like the mafia of the online world, because if you don't pay what the mafia wants you to pay, they turn you off, and then it's like you're not easily found, And if you don't show up on the first page or 2, usually page 1's the most important, then I regret to tell you, people aren't going to find you, So keep all that in mind. You want everything to be consistent. The color schemes that you use on your website should match your business cards. And we do encourage you to use, unless you're ugly, you should use your face on your business card. Okay, I'm joking a little bit, but just a little bit though, mostly not joking. Research has been done that shows that when a person's, I was a national trainer for Century 21, so I'm not even dreaming this up. This is reality. When your face is on a card, like your actual face is on a card, I don't mean your face from 20 years ago. I mean your current face is on a card. People look at it and they don't easily throw it out, compared to when it's a faceless card with just print on there. So you want to, if you can have your face on there, it'll make your card last longer, okay? It won't land up in the garbage real quick. So that's something you want to think about doing as well. So the color scheme on your card should match your website, should match your brochures. Everything should be homogeneous. You want everything to go together, not haphazard, this, that, the other thing, because then they're going to wonder, well, if the person runs their business like this, then the problem is their business as a home inspector, like when they do an inspection of a house, is that all over the place too? You know, but good company for business cards. Yeah, I want to say that. Oh, see, I can't think of the name of it. They advertise all the time. Vistaprint, Vista, Vistaprint. But they have pretty affordable cards. But don't get just basic cards. Get some nice cards. Again, higher quality cards, and with your face on there, they're not going to want to throw it out. Plus, it kind of, you know how like a real estate agent wants to pull up in their Mercedes, not their, I don't know, Ford Focus. I don't know. They want to pull up and they want to like make a statement. Well, your card makes a statement, and it's a relatively inexpensive way to make a statement. Okay, so I would strongly encourage getting good quality business cards. And of course, your email address too should all follow as well. Should all be a homogeneous. You want to make sure everything kind of just goes together, well. Okay, so you've got the business cards, you got the that, you got this. So now you have to figure out, okay, where am I going to advertise? Well, I can tell you where not to advertise. Like in our local home finder is a real expensive place to advertise, and you don't get a lot of action from that. Google AdWords makes a big difference. Good quality brochures that you're going to drop off at offices. I'll talk about that in a moment. The penny savers, any of the local community papers, awful, just such a waste of time. They're just terrible. I've had such bad results. And when I say I've had bad results, I don't mean just me. I mean, students have told me what a waste of time. I know some people have had good luck with the envelopes that come full of coupons, the ones that come like, I don't know, monthly or every 6 weeks. And, usually they have like one real estate person, one home inspector, one contractor, carpet cleaning and all these other things. And it comes, I don't forget the name of it is, whatever. Groupon, I'm not a big fan of, because they take so much money from you. Like they take 50% of your fee, and that's even after you give a substantial discount. So Groupon, I love using Groupon, but I don't when I've investigated using them for, courses and school related things, it's just horrible what they charge. Like it's very difficult. So if you have some questions about places to advertise, feel free to ask and I will comment on them for you, okay? But everybody, the minute you get your license as a home inspector, everyone will have their hand out. They're gonna want to get, the one big thing I hear home inspectors the trap that they fall into is the service. I don't know what it's called, but I'll describe it and that should do the job. It's a service where you pay some kind of a monthly fee, and then every time someone wants a home inspection within so many miles of whatever zip code you pay for, or maybe just in your zip code, I forget how they do it. What happens is if you like click your phone quick and say, okay, I accept this report or I accept this client, that's when you pay. The problem is 20 home inspectors who've paid for that zip code all get the little ping on their phone at the same time. So it's so rare for you to actually get business out of it that even though you ping, the minute you accept it, even if you don't get it, you still pay for it. Like, wow, what a racket. It's mind blowing to me, the creative ideas out there that are just horrible, So if you're going to do something like that, I would talk to some other home inspectors before that and see if they've had good luck, because I don't think I've heard anything good about that service. You don't get the business you think you're going to get. The realtors they pay for Zillow, they pay for these different leads, leads that you can get. And, Zillow's making a lot of money. I've watched their stock go up and down over the years too. And I can tell you that, it's not going to be cheap, but it can make a big difference. But I want to tell you a real cheap. So Home Advisor, I guess check the prices out. Like the good thing is that any of these places that I kind of put my blessings on to go for, like Home Advisor's fine. There's advertising, and the realtors seem to like Home Advisor, from what I can remember. I would say to you that in the beginning, you're going to get a lot of deals. You're going to get a lot of deals from people that will be worth giving it a try. Just don't lock yourself into anything long term. Until you know it works, don't lock yourself into anything long term. But here's a better way to get business. I like, it's a little old fashioned, but I'll tell you, it's really effective and it's very cost effective. So if you go to BNAR, BNAR.org, that stands for Buffalo Niagara Association of Realtors. If you go to BNAR and you look to the left or you look to the right, they move things around, and it says roster, R-O-S-T-E-R, roster. You can click onto that and it will give you a listing of every single member of the local association of realtors. So if you're watching this and you're not from the local area, you're from another area, however you can get to the local association of realtors will get you on the same page as I am right now, okay? And it will list every single company alphabetically that are members of the Association of Realtors, and then the individual agents who are associated with that firm. It'll give you all their names, and it'll give you their phone numbers as well. It gives you usually their cell phone. Different areas in downstate New York, they do things different. So I'm just going to quote upstate New York. So when you get this, I want to explain now, okay, now you've got this, and what are you going to do with it? Well, here's what you're going to do. You should know that real estate companies generally have weekly office meetings. Many times they're on Tuesday, sometimes they're on Wednesday. Sometimes they have, some offices, especially the larger ones, have monthly meetings where they know that they've got a percentage of their agents who are part-time, because in real estate, if you do anything other than sell real estate, you're considered part-time. So if you have a job as a nurse and you have a real estate license, you're considered part-time because you have some other thing that keeps you occupied. So as a real estate agent, let's say you have weekly meetings on Tuesdays normally. And what they do at these weekly office meetings is they usually get about a third to half of the office will show up at the office, and they go and they find out what are the new listings, what are the listings that sold, what's going on with law changes that they should be aware of, or office policy things. And then they have guest speakers. And here's the part that you should care about. They will have lawyers, appraisers, home inspectors, mortgage people come in and talk. Now, you don't go to a real estate office empty-handed. And I don't mean just bring your business cards and brochures. You got to bring food. Like, you got to feed these real estate agents. You've got to pick up donuts. You got to pick up bagels. You got to pick up donut holes, whatever you can, you got to feed them. And I'm going to explain all this to you now. So they get together, and sometimes the meeting, they have the guest at the beginning or they have the guest at the end. But regardless of where you are as the guest speaker at this office meeting, you have to have something to talk about. They don't want you to go there and say, hi, I'm a home inspector and I'm great and here's donuts. Like, they want more from you than that. They want you to teach them something, but not take up too much time. And yeah, and that's it. So that's what you do. So you have to have a topic. You have to have something that you can talk about, and you might want to pick the latest craze and things that, like maybe there's an issue with OSB or in its strand board issues with roofing. There's a ton of things you could talk about. Carbon monoxide, radon, National Radon Month. There's you just spend a little time researching, you can come up with a topic that you want to talk about. And then make up placards like the ones that you see in the school that we have that, those are from career seminars that I've gone to promote the school and our programs over the years. So you want to make up some placards for you that you can take to real estate companies, and you can like talk about things on there, like use it as talking points and talk about the services that you provide. But again, they want to learn something. The real estate agents don't want you there so that you can like just talk about yourself. And it has to be brief because their attention span is very short. Nothing like you folks. Like they just, okay, they want to like wham, bam, done. Next, because they want to go do what they got to do to keep their deals together. And when you do a good job and you do that, they'll remember you. And you'd be shocked at how many people will speak to you afterwards, especially because they might have had a bad experience with a home inspector. So you have to do that on a regular basis. And if public speaking isn't your thing, get over it. Like really get over it. You have to forget what you learned. Like you remember when you were a kid and your mom said you don't talk to strangers. Okay, that you forget about that. You want to talk to as many strangers as you can as a new licensee, as a home inspector. Okay, and you want to make sure that you bring enough information to give to everyone that's there, as well as the people who aren't there. Because what they do is at real estate companies, they have little mail slots for everyone. And in the mail slots is, like you talk to the office secretary or administrative person and say, I've got extra flyers and brochures for the people that didn't attend today. And sometimes they let you put them in. Other times they let, they will take it and do it for you. Many times they will do it for you because they don't want you like in the private area if they don't know you, But it's like me, I get to go, like they just let me go do whatever and it's great, So, and you'll get to that point at some point, especially if you do it on a regular basis. So the way that you get to do this, okay, I can explain the whole process, but I got to explain how do you get to do this, okay, is you look at that list and you pick the companies in the areas that you're going to be working in. So let's say you live in Buffalo. If you live in Buffalo, then what you're going to do is you would pick up companies that are in the part of Buffalo that you're in, and then maybe the first ring suburbs. So maybe Cheektowaga, maybe West Seneca, maybe Amherst. You'd pick those offices. And then what you do is, now this I can only quote for BNAR, BNAR.org. Every location has a different way that they do it. You want to find the code that represents the office manager, because the office manager is the one that usually conducts the office meeting in most cases. And for BNAR, what they do is they have a little asterisk. So they have a whole list of names, alphabetical per office, and they have an asterisk. That asterisk represents the office manager. So when you call up, you want to ask for the office manager and say the name of the person, because otherwise, if you say the office manager, they think you're selling them something. So you ask for Jim Watson there. He's an office manager locally at one of the local companies. And they'll say, oh, sure, who's calling? And then, you introduce yourself and hopefully you'll get through. All depends on like when you do it. Like the worst time to do it is a Monday morning. Don't call and set these things up on a Monday morning because the office manager is dealing with a whole mess from the weekend, all the things that are going on from the weekend. Monday is never a great day to do these things. Friday is not a good day to do these things either. So try to make your calls. Tuesday's bad because it's office meeting day in most cases. So like I would say Wednesday, Thursday are the best days where office managers are not losing their minds and they can focus on, oh, okay. And don't expect to be able to go in right away and do it. They might say, okay, well, we have an opening 4 weeks from now, 6 weeks from now. That's real common, okay? And then all you want to do, now here's what you want to do, because you don't want them to control the conversation. So what you do is you say to them, hi, Mr. Watson, my name's Joe. I'm a home inspector in the area, and I wanted to know if I could come by in the next couple of weeks and just talk for 5 minutes about radon or whatever topic you're going to pick that you think will be interesting. I can't give you a list of those things. That's up to you. I'll just give you the idea, okay? And I'm happy to bring bagels or donuts, whichever you think. Which one do you think that they would appreciate? You should do it exactly the way I just said. Because then instead of thinking about, oh no, this person wants to come in and talk, they think about, oh, do we want donuts or bagels? Okay. like I kid you not, this is like salesmanship 101. And I'll be sharing more salesmanship 101 with you through the evening as we continue. So you work it out with them, and the thing that they want to know is that you know that you shouldn't be long. And you want to clarify with them a couple of things. Number one, do you like your guest speakers before your meeting or after your meeting? Because everyone does it differently. And then number two, how many people usually show up so I make sure that I bring enough donuts and bring enough brochures for everyone. And that's it. And that's one of the best ways to get business. Another good way to get business, how do you like that idea, by the way? Let me know what you think of that idea. I've been doing that for years. Like it's a great way. The more people you get in front of, the better. Really, it's so important, and it's just wonderful. And you build confidence too. The more you do it, the better you get. Please don't think sending out mailers and dropping off flyers is enough. Like that's the biggest waste of time. The response rate for when you do non-face-to-face with people is so small, it's ridiculous. Like it's really bad. You're just wasting money. You might as well spend that money on Google AdWords to at least make your phones ring, if you know. So that's a good thing to do. Another thing, which is a little controversial, I don't know why, it seems reasonable to me, is to, on open houses, on Sunday open houses. Now, nowadays people have open houses on Thursdays and Saturdays and Sundays. So, and you can go on the local realtor's website. They list open houses. You can just drive around, and when you see them, you can do that. You can Google it and find out, when each company, each company, all the big ones in each area, we don't want to promote real estate companies here, but you just want to find out when do they have their open houses and when do they have them scheduled. Is there a place on their website that they identify this? And what you do is you show up at an open house, but you make sure there's not a bunch of cars there. The best way for a realtor to hate you is for you to come interrupt an open house to talk about doing home inspections for them. But if the open house is quiet, so if the open house is quiet and there's not much going on, that's fantastic for you and obviously not for the realtor. And you just show up and you let them know right away, oh, hi, I'm Frank. I'm a home inspector and I work in your area. I just wanted to give you some business cards in case you ever need an inspection done. I know the area real well. If you have the background of a contractor or anything extra that makes you sound great, let them know, say, oh, I've been a contractor in the area for the last 10 years. And now I do home inspections and I'd love to help you out if you need help ever, It's nice. Now, here's where it's nice for you to go online and look up like gifts. I forgot what the website. Maybe Vistaprint does that too. I feel like there's another site. I know I always get a catalog from a place. It's a pretty, it's a half-inch thick or quarter-inch thick, and it's like little gifts that you can give. Like one thing that I did that was real successful was magnets that had a thermometer on there. The popular thing that you've probably seen are calendars, but they don't work really good mid-year. Calendars are good for when you're out in November and October and you're doing it for the following year. But then once a calendar is done, then they throw it out. So I like something, everyone always wants to know the temperature. So people sometimes they do like Post-it notes and it's got but then once they're all used up, that's gone too. People do pens, but then if the pens dry up fast or doesn't work or explodes on them, well, then they hate you for that. So, just real carefully think things through. I figured, how can I go wrong with a thermometer? Yeah, you go wrong with a thermometer. And I'll tell you, I saw two actually. I saw two thermometers at two different offices, and I did it 10 years ago. Like, I was like, wow. It made me feel good actually, but I was like, wow, this is like shocking to me. So, try to think of something that might be around a long time that you can give people as a gift. And that's a good thing to give when you go to an open house to visit a real estate agent to promote yourself. And you can easily hit up 5-10 open houses a week. It helps you learn about the house and the housing stock in the neighborhood. It helps you get to meet the people out there that may refer you business. And I'll tell you, you might find this shocking, but there's home inspectors that you're going to be competing with who just blow off realtors. Like literally, I guarantee you, every 3-4 offices that you visit, at least one person from that office out of the 3 or 4 has had a home inspector just not show up. Either he or she forgot, or they just had something else to do instead. So I've gotten home inspection requests from people saying, my home inspector just never showed up. And like, can you do it? So you might actually get business out of that. It's a numbers game. Face-to-face is a numbers game. But the way it can pay off, there's innumerable ways that it pays off. I highly encourage. If you're not comfortable meeting strangers, you have to get over it. You really have to get over it. The other thing that people over the years, students have said over the years that works good for them is, again, you look in your local home finder. I think our home finder comes out on Fridays. It used to be Saturday. A lot of areas are Saturdays because that's when people traditionally they're home. They open up the paper. They're relaxing in the morning. And under the seminar section, they will see a list of, especially in the spring, like, we're coming up to that time where it's going to be real popular. I mean, obviously with COVID-19 going on, people aren't excited about that. But in a normal year, when this isn't happening, you've got people that are having home buyer workshops. And what happens is they have a few people there on a panel. They'll have an appraiser, they'll have a lawyer, they'll have a home inspector, and then they have the real estate agent. So the 4 of you maybe sit at a table at the realtor's office, and then what they do is they advertise, come for coffee, donuts, whatever, and participate in a home buyer seminar. And we've got experts from all the different fields that can answer your questions. You don't get a lot of business from that, but they're good to do once in a while to help promote yourself. And you never know if the lawyer at that home buyer seminar, you start getting friendly with him or her, and they maybe start referring you business. Lawyers are another source of business. The only problem is if you're using a lawyer that's been around a while, they probably have somebody already. But hey, people move, people die, people retire, you never know. You should ask everybody that you come into contact with if they know anyone that's thinking about buying or selling, and let them know that you're a home inspector. Because I guarantee you that if you don't make a practice of doing this, someone that will end up buying a home when they could have used you. Now, in New York, it turns out that it's illegal for you to do home inspections for friends or family. You might not know that. Now you know that. Because they consider it a conflict of interest. You might try to find more things wrong with the house in order to give the buyer a better negotiating position, like pay a lower price, when in fact that's not the case. Now, of course, that's very unethical to do that, but that's the logic behind the way New York State thinks, at least, and most states are similar to one degree or another. So. But that's a good news, like for example, if you have a hairdresser in the family, everybody gets free or cheap haircuts, and that's like, oh my God, it's terrible for the hairdresser in your family. But home inspectors, you can't even do it. You can't do it for your mother, brother, father, sister. You can't do it for friends or family. So yeah, so that's maybe something you learned tonight. We did all this advertising and marketing, and now the phone rings. Joe's Home Inspection Service. Now, when that person's calling, they usually just want the price first thing. I want you to know that in advance. Oh, hi, I just bought a house in Williamsville, and I was wondering if you could tell me how much you charge for a home inspection. Okay, so now we're going to begin a process. And the process is information gathering, because we're going to keep them on the phone for a little bit for a number of reasons. First of all, you just can't give a price, because if it's 5,000 square feet, or it's 2,000 square feet, the prices will be different. If there's certain inspections that you're going to provide, like you might provide an energy audit and you charge a lower price if you're packaging it with your home inspection. You might be doing a pest inspection as well. All of this, it's all affected, like, so you got to find out more about the house. Okay. So that's actually what you're going to say to them. Say, oh, I would love to give you an answer, like just right off the cuff, but I have to ask you a few questions about the house so I can give you the exact price, because I don't want you to spend more than what you need to spend. Okay. And that's a good thing to say. And hopefully you mean it as well. So first thing you say, well, they're going to say, oh, okay, sure. And then you're going to say, well, first I need the address of the house. So you get the address of the house, and hopefully you're near a computer, or you can type it into your phone. If it's a different phone you have, like you can type, and you want to go to Zillow, Zillow, go to Zillow.com, type that address in, and pull up the house. Because the odds that the purchaser of the home, who's going to be your client, the odds that they're going to know the size of the house and the intricacies of the house is not that great. Okay. But I'm still going to ask them the questions, because if the information differs substantially, it tells me a lot about what's going on. So you pull it up and they say, oh, is that the house with the green shutters? And then they say, oh, yeah, it is. How do you know? Say, oh, I always like to pull up a record of the house and just compare a few things, and it helps me give you the most accurate price. Oh, okay, sure. So you're looking at the listing and you say to them, okay, so I see there's a finished basement. Is it a fully finished basement? And they say, oh, I'm thinking. Oh, yeah, it's pretty full. I'd say all of it's finished. Okay, good. And sometimes there's fireplaces in the basement. Is there a fireplace in this basement or anywhere in the house? Because the tax records don't show that for the house. And say, oh, actually, there's a wood-burning stove in the basement. Say, oh, okay, all right, that's good to know. I want to jot that down. And it says here that there's a two-car garage. Is that correct? And they say, yep, two-car garage. But there is a one-car detached garage that they use for storage, and it's towards the back of the lot. Say, oh, okay, that's good. Now, side note for you as a home inspector, that's more to inspect. So some inspectors will charge an extra $25 for that. Others are just, they don't charge anymore because it's only like 10 minutes worth of an inspection. So it's not even worth charging more. Be careful to not nickel and dime people, because if they feel like they're being nickel and dime, they may go elsewhere for the inspection, because people don't like. One of the common things is that when home inspectors don't do it the way I'm suggesting, what happens quite a bit is like if you're like, okay, I charge for this, I charge for this, I charge for that, it turns people off. It really does. And the most common mistake that's made is people quote a smaller square footage. It's always smaller. Like if you don't confirm the information, it's always a smaller house that they quote, and then you get out there and it's 500 square feet or 400 square feet bigger. And then it's like, now you're the bad guy if you charge them more, even though you quoted them a price based on a smaller square footage. So that's usually where you have to make an executive decision. Am I going to eat this and just be like, oh, okay, I'm not going to say anything? So you have to figure out how you're going to do that. I hope you kind of can tell from what I'm saying is usually you just kind of suck it up and you don't charge. But that's why you pull the tax record up while you're with them on the phone, so that everything is, the way is accurate. Okay. So if the home is 1,912 square feet, then you say to them, well, tax records show that the home is about 1,912 square feet. Take a random chance and ask, does it seem about right? Does it feel like that? I don't know if have you owned a home before? Have you had a home inspection before? These are real good questions to ask, because then that tells you that, well, wait a minute. This isn't a new thing for them. So they're going to already have expectations. And I hate to tell you that most of the time when we talk to people about their experience with home inspectors, they don't say great things. Your competition out there, is not super spectacular. There's a lot of mediocrity out there, a lot of mediocrity in the world in general. But the home inspectors are, yeah, I mean, I like to think that the ones that come through our school are top notch. But we can't control how you run your business when you leave. We can only give you the best information and suggestions while you're here, and then hope for the best. But yeah, so it's, if they've already had a home inspection done in the past, at least this is not a new process for them. But that doesn't mean you're going to do anything different. You're still going to give them the same high quality service that you'd give them anyways. So, okay, so we're still asking questions about the house. Part of the reason why we're being so thorough up front is not only because we want to give them an accurate price, but if they're on the phone with you for 12 to 20 minutes answering questions, it turns out that they don't want to do this with every single person that they call. Because at the final end of your conversation, when you give them a price, if you're giving them a fair competitive price, they're probably going to just go with it. Especially because they don't want to sit on the phone and get read the riot act, which is answering all these questions. Like, oh my, every inspector is probably going to do this to me. I'll just go with this first one that I got a hold of. But you need these questions answered, and I haven't even finished. Like, there's more, a lot more we got to talk about. So as you're making a list of everything that we're talking about here, I have more questions for you to ask them. So once you get enough information about the house, again, you're going to ask questions about things that don't show up in the public records so much. Okay, like sometimes people say, well, should I ask if they have a pool? Well, if you don't do pool inspections, then you don't want to ask if there's a pool, because most inspectors exclude pool inspections. Because like a real good way to do a pool inspection is to have scuba diving gear and go into the pool and check for cracks and things. And I don't own too many inspectors locally that do that. Out of state, that's common. But in the part of New York that you're in, it's not common to do that. Although you could invest in that, but you might have other services that you want to provide. Like right now, it's very common. Well, it's becoming common. It will be more common as years go on to provide a drone roof inspection, because for the most part, you're taught, and most schools teach the same way, that they don't want home inspectors to walk on a roof because you could damage the roof, and you could of course fall and damage yourself. So that's highly discouraged to do that. So drone inspections is another inspection. You might provide infrared inspections, like a number of you take the Certified Energy Auditor course that we offer, and that's an upsell for you. So when you're talking to them on the phone, usually that's a $225 inspection. But if I'm already out at the property, I can do that energy audit for you, which only takes an extra 35 to 45 minutes. I can do that for you and charge $75 more, and it's or $100 more. And the funny thing about it is the money that you save from getting an energy audit will pay for your home inspection, and will pay probably triple the money you spend on that. You'll get back 3 times over or more, depending how energy inefficient the home is. So this, when you're on the phone with them, after you gather enough information about the house, you want to make sure you ask them, would you like to have a radon inspection? Because like in certain parts of the area, like especially Clarence Hollow, and there's a number of places I can explain that. I can explain that to you in a moment, but they may want a radon inspection. They may want a certain energy audit. They may want a pest inspection. If they're lenders from a California bank or an area where termites and carpenter ants are an issue, like in warm climates, they often just say, okay, everyone needs to have a pest inspection. So you can't do that if you don't have your wood certification. That's that other program that we offer, and many schools offer too. So, but anyway, so we're still talking about the house. And we want to ask questions that pertain to things that might not show up in the public records. Another question would be, does the home have a finished attic? Now, sometimes people don't get permits for that work, so you wouldn't see that in the public records, but they expect you to inspect it, okay? So they're answering all these different questions for you and say, all right, good. Now, so you're probably like 12 minutes now into your conversation with them and say, now, what kind of financing are you applying for? And they might be taken aback by that, or they might not. Most of the time, I don't know about you, but for me, when I ask people questions, they answer the questions. They figure if I'm asking, it's got to be relevant, you know. So I'm not used to people not answering my questions, so I just assume the same for you as well. But the reason why you ask is because if they say to you, well, it's FHA, then you want to say to them, oh, okay, well, that's good to know, because when I do an inspection and I know it's an FHA mortgage that you're applying for, then what I do is I let you know about any of the nuances that an appraiser who's inspecting following HUD guidelines, HUD guidelines, I go through very carefully and let you know that, like, for example, if there is not an extension pipe on the TPR valve, TPR stands for temperature pressure relief valve, that's on the hot water heater, and if there's not an extension pipe on that TPR valve that comes within 6 inches of the ground, that's only a $6 or $7 item, but that necessitates a reinspection by the appraiser that could cost them $150 for a $6 or $7 piece of plastic. So, and this is what you're going to have to explain to them, because the typical home inspector that doesn't come to our school, they will say, that's not my job, it's not my problem. And I think when your client wastes that $150 they could have paid towards your energy audit and actually like did something productive with it instead of just another bank fee that goes out the window. And a lot of times they don't even know about these things. They'll know when they finish talking to you if you've taken good notes tonight and share this information with them. So they sit back and they're like, oh, I didn't even know that that could happen. And say, there's tons of things. There could be a handrail that's missing. I'll let you know about that, because with FHA, they care about safety. They care about the topography around the property, because if it swales towards the house, you like, that's a huge problem for FHA. They don't like that. And if you want a list of the various HUD items that an FHA appraiser looks for, just go to Google and type in HUD/FHA inspection guidelines for appraisers. And that'll give you a list of everything. We also have a course that you can take when it's time for you to do your continuing education. New York is a little different than most other states. Most other states, you can do it online. New York doesn't permit that. You have to be in class and do live classes. So when you come to our class, we have a class, 6-hour class on HUD FHA inspection guidelines. So you can learn everything in that class too. But if you want to know sooner, then I would say get that information off of Google, and and you can acclimate yourself with it after you're done with the state exam. I wouldn't worry about it right now. Okay, and yeah, so you let them know that any inspection issues that are easy to fix, I'm going to let you know about it, so that before the appraiser comes out and spends this extra money, you can work it out with the seller. And like, why should you waste this money? You tell them. And they're like, wow. Because now, you kind of want to get them to like you. It's nice to work with people you like. And this is like the first time you're talking to them. So it's a real important process that you're going through. So they say to you, okay, wow, that's good to know. All right. So that's the reason why you ask about the financing. Now they may say to you, I don't know what kind of financing, and say, well, if you have your contract of sale, there's information I'm going to need off of that anyways. Do you want to grab it? I hope you picked up on what I just said. So now you're having them get that contract of sale. I don't know if it's like, if you notice, but aren't I talking like I've already been given the inspection? Yeah, because we call this the assumptive approach in real estate. The assumptive approach is where you just assume that you're going to get the inspection by virtue of the way you talk and the actions and the time that they're investing with you. And it turns out that it works a lot of the time. So this is all a good thing. So they go get the report, they go get their contract, they bring it back, and they go in there and say, oh, you know what? We checked off that we're going to be applying also for a neighborhood grant. Now that's good to know too, because whenever people are applying for a neighborhood grant program, like Hamburg had one for a while, I don't know if they still do. Tonawanda had one for a while, I don't know if they still do, but different communities do it all over the country. And sometimes, people forget to tell you, but you should ask them, are you applying for any kind of a neighborhood grant program? Because then often they have like a checklist for you to follow. In addition, like they want you to go through this checklist about the property that will be submitted to the people giving the grant, in addition to the normal inspection that you would do. Which again, that's another time-consuming thing. So you may want to add, when you're doing the math to yourself, you're going to add $25 maybe for that. All depends. You may want to look at it first, or not even charge for it and just take it all into consideration. Another question you want to ask them while you've got them on the phone is, do you know if any components were shut off at time of inspection? Because if something was like, let's say the house was winterized, you want to know about this in advance, because then you're going to have to coordinate with the realtor. You can't test a bunch of things if the home has been winterized or partially winterized, or if the electric is off, or if the attic was locked because there's things stored there. You want to be able to have access to that. You also want to ask your potential client if there is access to the attic and to all of the basement. And do you remember if the water was run when you were there? Like if the home was being lived in, it probably was. But a lot of people are buying homes that have been vacant for some period of time. So these are all good questions to ask. Are there any questions so far? Okay. Well, shoot them out if you do think of any questions. So you're on the phone talking about all these different things that you do. You had a good feel for the house. Okay, good. I appreciate your feedback. Thank you. You've asked about financing. You've asked about any components that were shut down. And there's one more thing. There's two more things about the contract I want to share with you. Really important, okay? So in terms of the contract, you want to ask them, has anything been negotiated between you and the seller that's going to be replaced prior to closing? Okay? So has anything been negotiated to be replaced prior to closing? For example, the seller could have agreed to replace the furnace prior to closing, or the hot water heater, or fix a broken window. You want to know about these things because if it's a furnace, you want to coordinate the inspection either for afterwards or to let them know, like, I can disclaim. Now, when you disclaim something, that means you're not inspecting it, okay? Itchy nose, sorry about that. So if something's going to be disclaimed, you don't want to inspect it, but then you don't have to charge them, or at least you knock off $5, $10 for that part of the inspection. All right, so I want to make you aware to always ask if there's been anything negotiated in advance that's going to be replaced prior to closing. And 95% of the time, the answer is going to be no. But I'd rather you ask the question and be thorough than to just assume no, because it's all part of keeping them on the phone, talking about all the, the details of the home and the inspection. Okay? And then the other important question I want you to ask, and then I can't think of anything else I would ask the prospective client, is what is the deadline? And actually, I want you to know this is the first question you should ask them, because it could affect all the rest of it. The first question you should ask your client before anything else is, what's the date in your contract that your inspection has to be done by? Because there's a legal phrase, and I don't know what it's called, but there's a legal phrase that means this. If the date in my contract if the date in my contract states that by this date an inspection isn't done, I'm considered to have waived my right to an inspection. I don't know the legal term for what I just described to you, but whatever it's called, if that date has already come and gone, or it's 3 days from now, you have to make sure you can get that inspection done before that date. Otherwise, they've wasted their money to have an inspection done. So there's a date in that contract. Most every area of the country has a part in that contract that is already set up, because you don't know how fast people get a hold of you in order to work this out. As a matter of fact, if you ask that question first, you want to make sure you're even available on the day that they need an inspection. If you booked a cruise to Aruba, you're not going to be canceling that to do an inspection. So why spend all this time talking to them about all the details? Okay. So it's really important to know when that date is. And then the other thing too is, when you initially set up the inspection, one of the first questions is, do you already have a date that was worked out when you were negotiating with the seller? Because a good realtor, the way we teach our brand new people, not that they remember, but we try, we throw a lot of information at people. You probably feel the same way. Is we let them know that when you're negotiating with the seller, you're doing all the details of the contract, and then you've worked it all out. While you've got everyone around and raring to go, you want to say to them, all right, so what's a good day for the home inspector to come out? Could we set up a couple options that work for the seller when we can get access to the home, and that, I can try to work out with the buyer? Actually, the buyer's going to be part of it, so you're going to, work that out as well. So this way, hopefully the inspector can meet, you want a couple different options. You don't want to just pick one. So 2 or 3 options is even better, because you don't know how busy. There's certain parts of the country that you can't get an inspection done for weeks. And there's certain times of the year in Western New York where we have that situation as well. So if there's already a date set up and you're not available, then at least you don't go through everything. But assuming that you're going to be available, these are all really good questions. And that's pretty much the phone interview. So the final step is how much. You tortured them for 20 some odd minutes on the phone asking all these questions. Now they want to know, okay, so how much is this home inspection going to be? And the market dictates the price. You got to look around and see what area inspectors are charging for things. A lot of stuff is online. When you talk to realtors and you go to their open houses and you talk to them one-on-one, real easy to find out, like, okay, so what do your clients typically pay for a home inspection? I can't even share numbers with you because it's all over the place. It really is all over the place. I've heard them as low as the $200 range for a little tiny house. And I've heard it as high as $400 or $500. So it's going to depend on the square footage. I know for my breakdown of a home inspection, for the cost, the pricing, I'll go from 0 to 1,000 square feet as my base pricing for a home inspection. And then 1,000 to 1,500, 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. And then I even go 2,000 to 2,500 square feet. And then after that, I have what we call a la carte pricing. And I do that because once a home starts to get around 2,500 square feet, you get multiple components. There'll be 2 hot water heaters. There'll be 2 furnaces. There'll be 2 central air units. That's about the square footage where that begins to happen. Okay. And then that's more things for you to look at. And that's kind of why you have to do what we call a la carte pricing once it starts to get to be, a bigger home. Okay. So any questions about that? That's the entire interview with the client. And then when you quote the price, hopefully, you're on the phone. Hopefully you don't hear them go fall on the floor from in shock of how expensive it is. Assuming that you're not going to be charging a ridiculous price. You'll charge a fair competitive price. And then what you should do, again, you're not tested on this, but it's just really, you want to get into good practices. And sometimes for our contractors in the class, they're the ones that struggle the most because they already have their the way that they operate their business, and they just treat home inspection as an extension of that. I really encourage you to get the contact phone numbers, because you got to remember this. The agent that you're going to be dealing with is the buyer's agent in most cases. And that agent, there's a 60% chance that it's different from the agent that listed the property. Now, since most home inspectors aren't real estate professionals, I just want to take a moment and explain to you that in real estate, when you drive down the street and you see signs in front of a house, that's the listing company. They're called the lister. There's 2 sides to a transaction, the listing side and the selling side. So when people purchase a home, they're on the buying side of it. They don't always buy it from the company that has it listed. So they're not going to have access to the house. You can't just, even if it's an electronic keypad to get in, you just can't go and use it without setting up an appointment. Most companies want you to set up an appointment in advance, and there's ways to electronically control it so that once it sells, nobody has access to it except a listing agent, because people have abused privileges of using electronic keypads for access. And then they just, they go in any old time. That's not always the case. And that's one of the reasons why home inspectors have to join boards of realty as what they call an affiliate member. So that means you have to pay dues and things, but not as much as a realtor, but you have to pay dues, and sometimes you have to take the ethics course. We do offer the ethics course, by the way, for the National Association of Realtors. So if you ever need it, we have it online, we have it in class. But yeah, so you have to be a member of the board in order to have access to houses that are listed with members of the board that have electronic keypads. That's a pretty uniform rule around the country as well. So that's about it. All right. So that's how you get business and what you do once you get business. And the only way I would wrap up that topic is to tell you that, good. I'm glad people are good. The only way I would wrap up that topic is to make sure, now that you know what the lister is, what the seller is, the listing company, and then the agent, you want to get the names of everybody, the names and the cell phones. You want to ask your client if they, actually, I got a little more to tell you. I got a little bit more to tell you. So once you know they're good with the price, you're going to confirm the appointment with them. You're going to ask them for their agent's name and cell phone and email address. And then you want to make sure everybody knows. You're going to send an email and a text to everybody involved. Well, not the sellers. You never deal with the sellers directly. And technically, you shouldn't even be dealing with the listing agent. Unless the listing agent also sold the house, you're going to be dealing with the agent of the client you just spoke with on the phone. And you're going to confirm with them that you've been retained by the Jones to do the inspection, and the inspection for the property. So you give the full property address, the date, the time, and that's it. You want to confirm that information, and you want it in print. And you make sure everybody acknowledges receipt of that. You know how when we want you to say, yes, I'm going to be attending class, or yes, I'm doing whatever. That's what you should be doing with the agent that the buyer is working with. And then what happens, it saves you the hassle of the buyer, they forget the time, or the agent forgets the time. If it's in print, they don't have to worry about, because they're going to call you at the least opportune time. It's the way Murphy's Law is, So you don't want that to happen. You want them to have it right there on their phone. They can look right at their text like, yep, we're going to look at that house Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. Perfect. And then that's good. And it's always good to confirm. What I would do with the realtor that has the property, the agent that's working with your client, you want to ask them, were all the components on at the home? The electric, the water, the gas, everything's on, right? And I have full access to the property, right? There's no part of it that's, you know what kind of attic access they have is a scuttle. That scuttle is like the little square box that nobody really fits in unless you're really thin. And it's usually through a bedroom closet, or it could be in a hallway. So if it's a scuttle, do I have access to go in there? Or is it a full attic, or what's the situation with that? The basement, do I have full access to that? Is the garage, is it anything? Anything like that, you want to make sure you have full access, and make sure no components were turned off. Because when you show up at the property and there's components turned off, which this has happened to me and many inspectors over the years, and I always ask the question, and it still happened to me. But you've done all you can do. There's nothing else you can do. But if you didn't ask, well, then you're partly to blame, because you're the professional. You're supposed to ask these questions. Okay. So now I'm done. Now I'm done with that.